Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to episode 62 of the Prosperous Yogini Podcast. This is part three of our four-part mini series of teaching clinics. And today is Shimmy Day. Okay. So, episode 61 and 60, very much talking about, guiding, learning to guide our students into their own alignment, teaching them a felt sense and empowering them to go, actually, this is what I need to do in the shape of Trikonasana, in the shape of Tadasana, in order to feel that sense of space and balance. All right. And at the end of last week's episode, I kind of alluded to kind of one of my dreams of moving to a space in terms of movement practice, movement teaching, that is a little more invitational and a little bit freeform. Okay, so maybe in 10 years' time we'll go to yoga class and it'll all be ecstatic dance. That may not be for everyone. And one of the biggest challenges, imagine if I said to you and said, right, you're going to turn up and teach this week. You're just going to say to your students, come to your mat, take a few breaths, and ask your body what movement it would like to make, and go. And we're going to do this for 60 minutes. And you imagine their response. Now, if you had advertised it as, and people were very, very clear that that was what was going to happen, and you were just going to hold space, they were going to be in a room with a group of people, all in that same energy, all in that same vibration of, I'm just going to come here, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to get right into me, right into my body, right into this space, and just ask the question, what movement would you like to make? And make it, whatever comes out. But you know what? They're all going to be up for it. But on the average yoga class, and I'm just thinking of like, I had for a good for like 10, 12 years, a very established vinyasa, ashtanga style Saturday morning class. And I have such fun memories of teaching this group of people. It was, over the time of teaching it, very established, busy class, dedicated yoga practitioners, and we had so much fun together. But I think of if I said this to them, they would be like, no, 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 Amy, we have come here to be told what to do by you, to told what shape to make with our body by you. I mean, like, coordinated dance, isn't it? And this is a bad thing, right? But we're missing the magic, right? If we are always, 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 always telling our students what to do. And I first kind of woke up to the possibility of slipping in a little bit of free movement without them knowing it was coming or realize it was happening from my pregnancy yoga teaching. Pregnant women, I feel like the veil gets lifted a bit. We're pregnant, our body's changing, our intuition is going up, things are happening to our body that, basically are beyond our control, right? And we get more drawn, and I'm already swaying my hips, I'm already shimmying if you're not watching on YouTube. We get more drawn to making more instinctive movements. And like birth is a wonderful example of that. Like a lady who is there experiencing a natural, uninterfered birth isn't planning the shapes, the positions of what she's making with her body, isn't planning what she's going to do with her breath, isn't planning what she's going to do in terms of birthing positions, because she knows, her body knows. Her higher self, her intuition, her inner knowing takes over. And I'm like, we don't have to get pregnant, and we don't have to be in labor, and we don't have to be, one of the women that get to experience that type of birth. Okay, because that wasn't my experience of birth, by the way. We don't have to be in that place in order to experience that connection to our body, which is, this is what my body is asking me to do. And I have got absolutely no inhibitions in making it. I think there's back the first episode I talked about, like, Learning to do one yoga shape is not going to change your life, right? But if you want to change your life, if you want something to change, then one of the most powerful things you can do is change your movement. Like, if you follow me on social media, on my newsletter, I spoke about him on the podcast a few episodes ago. A brilliant guy called Stephen Braybrook, the movement man, who unfortunately lost his battle with cancer a few weeks ago. Like, one of his pieces of advice would be like, just every day try and do movement wise something different. And he was like, told us a story once of how he decided just to randomly walk backwards in the airport, and one, because we all walk forward, so when we walk backwards we have a different experience, and different experiences are new gold dust information for the nervous system. It'll break habits as well. And obviously, you've got to be careful if you're walking backwards. You're going to walk into anything when you want. But also, it's like, but when you do something that nobody walks backwards, right, in the airport, and people then are like, oh, that person's a bit strange. That person's a bit weird. Notice how, like, we're so also culturally, societally driven to move a certain way. And breaking those cultural expectations, those societal expectations, is all part of breaking down this belief system that could be inhibiting your potential, let's say potential for movement, potential to shine your full energetic vibration light into the world. Let's go back to the topic of shimmy. So if you are listening to the podcast in a way that means you can move from standing, bring your hands to the hips, and those feet wider than the hips distance. But as wide that feels good for you, you're like, no, how wide? 1 foot, 2 foot. Hang on a minute. I'm so used to big toe ankle joint touching. Let's take the feet slightly wider than the hip distance apart, okay? And what I want you to do is soften your knees, because if those knees are locked out, you now know you're locking out energy, you're locking out flow, you're locking out into your joints, and we're locking out space in the body, and we're locking out the movement. And with your knees soft, I just want you to circle your pelvis, or my favorite word, shimmy. I will tell you where the shimmy word comes from, I promise, by the end. Now, let's have to say in the UK, I can talk with authority like this, and this hip movement where could be suggested sexual, could be suggested, sensual, could be making an inappropriate invitation. I'm just moving my pelvis. But this might be my belief. And as a net result, we can see men and women getting quite locked into our pelvis. We can hear many, many yoga teachers talk about how your emotions are stored in your hips. And if your hips are tight, it's because you've got emotions stored in your hips. Look, you don't know that. So please stop saying that, all right? Emotions, our issues are our tissues, our emotions get stored all over our body. What it is potentially societal, cultural belief that moving our pelvis in a certain way, like I'm an exotic belly dancer, could be suggested sexual, could be suggested inappropriate. Now, because I have that belief, I don't make this movement, and it becomes a forgotten movement. It becomes a forgotten potential for energy. Whereas my pregnant women, they are here shimmying their pelvis all the time. Like, I get men to do this, and they're like, well, this is what women do. This is not a movement for a man. If you watch Strictly, if you don't watch Strictly this autumn, right, one of the biggest things, particularly, it's not always the male celebrity, but it is often the male celebrity. One of the biggest things that the professional dancers spends the first few weeks doing is getting their hips freed up so they can make a figure of 8. I'm having a go at making a figure of 8 with my pelvis now. Yeah, belly dancing on my podcast. Oh, I think I actually, if you're watching on YouTube, I reckon I'm not a big enough celebrity, but I should go on Strictly. All right, point made in terms of when we're talking about movement being locked out into the pelvis, we're talking about movements that we might not be consciously or subconsciously choosing to mate with our pelvis, because they get misconstrued. They are believed to be something else. You know, Gary Carter, I've done a lot of work with. His wife, she has Brazilian origin, and they spend a lot of time in Brazil. And Gary will talk about how the women in Brazil, pelvis just move differently, flow differently. You know, they spend their time salsa dancing. I mean, maybe we should all go to salsa. If you're watching on YouTube, I am now having a go at salsa dancing. Shimmying my pelvis, moving in a way that I'm not like, I don't really care whether you think I look silly, whether you think I'm making an inappropriate movement. I'm just moving my pelvis in a way that feels good. And I realized teaching pregnant women that this circular shimmying action on the pelvis is so beneficial to freeing up, promoting fluidity, range of movement, flexibility, whatever you want to call it in hips, freeing up the SI joint problems, SI joint instability, lower back pain. But it doesn't just end at the pelvis, because it feeds up into the spine. Like, notice how, you know, the undulating pattern from the pelvis shimmies up the spine. It doesn't just stop into the pelvis. Notice how, as I stuff my pelvis, the undulating pattern goes down to my knees and my ankles. Joint network. Okay, so how then, if you're like, I'm Amy, like, I really cannot, my students who have a moment of free form, how am I going to get this going on? So I've done a lot of work standing. What I'm going to ask you to do, if you're doing the movement with me, is come to a tabletop or forward position. Now, just feeding back to episode 61 on the hypermobility person, here's another place where if you are hypermobile, your students are hypermobile, you come to all fours, people will lock out those elbow joints. You'll see the inner creases of the elbows facing outward. You'll see those shoulders driving up by the ears. How do I remind my students not to do that? Well, a lot of the time we'll say turn the inner crease of the elbow towards each other. It's not too bad that, but I would just micro bend the elbows. Then if I micro bend the elbows, I have no choice. Then if you want to cue muscular action into the arms, because hypermobile people will need reminding of that, you can isometrically hug the hands together. You can draw the forearms in, hold the biceps out, or you can hug the muscles of the arm to the bone. All of it is valid. So let's say we brought our students to all fours. We maybe warmed up the spine with a few rounds of cat-cow. Great. What if you then just said, just circle your pelvis. Take a few circles with the pelvis, a few times in one direction, a few times in the other direction. And then take it in. You can be like, and continue to make this movement. Or if you like, if there's a different movement emerging, maybe like take those hands slightly further forward. Just like to shimmy and explore all the ways your pelvis wants to go. Maybe you want to come forward, maybe you want to come back. Just swaying your pelvis from side to side. No movement is wrong, and see what emerges. You as the yoga teacher have to be doing this as well. So no subconscious power, no no, not subconscious, no to like conscious, like, oh, this is a bit embarrassing, I'm feeling embarrassed to do that. You can't do it from that place. You've got to be totally in the free form, just swaying your pelvis from side to side. So there's the one place. Let's come to a lunge shape. So just step at any leg forward, low lunge. I call this actually my 90-90 or box lunge. So my front leg, knees in line with the ankle. Look, going back right to the episode 60 where I talked about Tadasana, that you could use one of those Tadasana cues here. So you feel your sit bones drop, feel the navel draw in, not tucking tailbone under. So this is sort of like, you know, we get very linear, very straight with our yoga shape, taking the arms up overhead, dropping down into the pelvis. Everything is all straight. And let you know that there's no straight lines in the human body. If you want to see what that might look like, go and have a look at a tree and the tree roots and how they spiral up into the trunk of the tree. Your bones have this spiralic shape, and your muscles, your tissues, your fascia are just wrapping around the bones. There are no straight lines in the body. There's all these spiralic shapes in the body. So what happens if this lower lunge looks something like this? So I've just put the hands to the front of my left thigh and I'm just circling around my pelvis. I'm just finding a bit of move, finding a bit of undulation, finding a shimmy. And if I wanted to, I could let this shimmy evolve into my arms coming up overhead, and anything that's calling me. Oh, I've been surfing quite a lot, so I'm enjoying circling my arms. But also, like, if you're like, you've got some students, just swapping legs, you've got some students that are like, oh my God, what's happened to my teacher today? He's taken a lesson in belly dancing. I'm not feeling this shimmy. You want your students to feel safe. So if they're having a reaction of, this feels really weird, really uncomfortable, I can't do this, you've given them an option. Maybe they just feel happy, hands on the legs, circling the knee. Maybe they want to take the arms up. Maybe they don't. But let's go back to all fours and back to the circle on the shimmy here. We started off just with a very known shape of a circle, and then you invited it out into the shimmy. So they can stay at that place the same thing. And we goes on and on and on, down dog. Now, how another linear pose? What if I bend the knees and circle the pelvis? What if I keep this shimmy going and explore plank shape and shimmy back to down dog? It actually feels very different and quite hard work. So I'm not saying the first time you do this with your students, they're all going to be like, up for it. You want to give them a place that they can feel comfortable in and invite those that feel ready to have a play, have a shimmy, to go elsewhere. It can even just be from a real simple place. So maybe we're sitting, I'm sitting in a kneeling position now, if you're not watching on YouTube. And it can just be a little circling of the pelvis here. You can do this cross legs as well. And just notice how you circle the pelvis, how the spine undulates up. Maybe that's just enough for today, but just that sort of awareness of the connection to the undulating, shimmying action of the pelvis and how that transmits movement into the spine. And if I'm not making this shimmying, undulating movement in my pelvis because I, whether consciously or subconsciously, believe that is an inappropriate movement, I'm missing the potential for that movement into my spine. So today's podcast is all about inviting the shimmy into your body, into your practice, into your students. And if you want to know where the shimmy comes from, many years ago, my first yoga studio, I'm really conscious that I need to talk about studio leadership because my first yoga studio was well, on paper, a disaster. But actually, one of the reasons why I had the business I have today. But my first yoga studio was opposite a gym that played loud music and did step and Zumba type classes. And I was teaching pregnancy yoga and they were doing their Zumba dance type class. The music was very loud. And I had my pregnant women, they were up against the wall, standing with their forearms on top of each other, their head resting on the wall. And we were just doing our pelvic circles like I do in my pregnancy yoga. This is where the shimmy came from. This is where I was first woken up to this powerful movement in our pelvis that unlocks the power within our pelvis. Okay, you talk about Muladhara chakra, you talk about Mula Bandha, you're talking about the power in the pelvis. Well, unlock it, darling, by moving it. Anyway, I was there just inviting my pregnant women to circle their pelvis, and the gym instructor shouted, not to my pregnant women, to her people she was teaching. And I was like, yes, shimmy. And in that moment, and ever since, and this is going back a good 12 years, I have talked and used that verbal cue to shimmy. Because for me, it's like, when we say shimmy, it's fun. It's nothing too serious, yeah? And it helps to break away that sort of oh, this might not be appropriate, or I might not be able to do this movement properly, where you just invite someone to shimmy, you just invite someone to play and have fun with the movement. So that's where the word shimmy comes from. And I'm passing shimmy on to you. So enjoy shimmying in your own practice and with your students this week. Thank you so much for listening to part 3 of my teaching clinic. Final part 4 is next week. Before I go, I'm sure you know what's coming, because this is going to be my little spiel at the end of the podcast now for quite some time. Okay. If your name is not on the wait list for my Prosperous Yogini mentorship program, get it on there, my darling. The doors reopen on October the 12th, 2023. If you're listening or watching this podcast episode at a different time and you find the doors are closed, just add your name to wait list. They open 3 times a year. It's really important, more important than ever, that you get yourself on the wait list, because things have changed slightly. There are 2 ways that you can come into the program, option 1 and option 2. Option 1, there's no limit in the amount of people that can come in on option 1. This is for community support. So you come into our community space away from Facebook, where you can ask for help and feedback on any aspect of both teaching and running your yoga business. And I always get back to you. And there are other community members, the other teachers in the program that also support you. It is a massive supportive network of women all go, yes, we can do this. Then along with that community space that you have access for 6 months, there are 3 monthly live calls, 2 coaching calls that are 90 minutes, where you can pre-submit questions. I always will answer your pre-submitted questions, and time permitting, there's hot seat coaching, so you can have me one-to-one on a coaching call, answer your question. And then the third call is a teaching clinic, very much like we've just been exploring, where I look at an aspect of teaching, and we also do a practice, because your practice matters too. So that is option 1, alongside the community space and supporting that community space, the 3 monthly live courses, 6 months. You also get access beyond 6 months, so it's ongoing access to all the self-paced training stuff, which is a 6-module course, The Business of Teaching Yoga, which literally takes you through every aspect of running your yoga business. Easy, digestible, actionable sections. Then you get access to my yoga library, which is over 100 classes of hatha, vinyasa, and yin style classes of varying lengths. You can keep your practice alive, and also you can just honestly steal my lesson plans and teach away. That's why it's there. My leverage short course, which shows you how to get going online, because if we all open the door to passive income, the more that money will flow to us and the more people we can help. And then finally, the Art of Teaching Yoga mini course, because teaching is teaching. If you feel confident in your yoga teaching, that is going to help in you feeling confident in your business, and vice versa. That is all option 1. And for October 2023, it is only 597. Okay. Prices, I can't guarantee it's going to be 597 in the future. Okay. So if you're listening in the future and the price has gone up, this is what happens. Okay. So now's a great time to come in. Option 2 is all of that goodness in option 1, but you also get me as your personal cheerleader for 6 months effectively. At the start of the 6 months together, I will get you to fill out a questionnaire where you tell me all about your business, all about you, and what it is you'd like to create. We also sit together on a Zoom call, a 60-minute Zoom call, and I take that questionnaire and our time together on a Zoom call, and I create what I call your personal pathway to profit, where I can't really explain it, but I'm just claiming and owning it, where I can listen to you and look at everything you're doing, and then get this download on, I think this would really work for you, and give you lots of ideas and lots of possible pathways that you can go down to share the light that is yoga, share your gifts, and make money and help people. And that pathway to profit, just to let you know, that is also an individual one-to-one offer. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. I take on a few people every month, so get in touch and available. If you're like, your mentoring program sounds great, but I'm not sure the 6-month commitment is for me. But just having you look at my business, having a chat with you for an hour, Amy, that sounds great. I can need that. The pathway to profit is an individual offer as well, and you can inquire and see if I've got availability for that at any time, my darling. Okay, going back to option 2 of the mentorship program, that pathway to profit, and you get me as your team leader, your cheerleader in your pocket for 6 months. I use Voxer or WhatsApp or email. You can contact me at any point and ask me a question, ask for feedback, direct personal feedback and support. And if there's anything that we just, we can't solve through chatting it through on WhatsApp, or going through it on an email, we will hop back onto that Zoom call. Like only the other week, someone was struggling with something in MailerLite, an automation, and I hopped on a Zoom call. Someone wanted some feedback on their website, and I actually made them an additional feedback video. So really, when you come into my world on that option 2 as one-to-one, it is real 6 months personal support. I'm very, very, very invested in those teachers that I work with one-to-one, and at $997, right, it's an incredible price for the level of support and the transformation that I'll be bringing to your yoga business. Both are great, and there are 2 options, and there is that option 1 there at that lower price, because I'm here, guys, to help you all. Right, I'm on a mission, if you haven't noticed, to help yoga teachers who happen to be primarily female feel confident in their teaching, confident in running their business, help people and make money. Right, I'm a little bit stuck, right, with seeing women, female yoga teachers struggling to go out there, really good teachers, perfectly well qualified, knowing, struggling to go out into the world for various reasons, share their gifts and make money. And one of the reasons why I'm here, my sole purpose, is to help you change that. And I literally am like, I am changing it one yoga teacher, one female yoga teacher at a time. That said, if there's any men out there that like, I'm not female, but I'm really work with you, Amy, I'm totally open to that too. I do work with men too. I have got some guys in my training program, so like that's cool as well. But primarily here to help women share their gifts with the world and make money. And my Prosperous Yogini mentorship program is there for those yoga teachers that want that. All right, my darling, I'm gonna stop rabbiting on about my mission and purpose. But you know what, guys? I want you to hear this, because this is so important. Just like a little bit of side business advice here. When you step into the energy, when you step into the vibration of this is what I'm really passionate about. This is what I know I came here to do. And I know if I persist with this passion, my soul's purpose, that give it time, that things will shift and happen for me. And that change, that difference I want to make, that I want to bring to people's lives, is going to start to happen. And I'm completely in that energy, that vibration. I'm complete evidence of, if you stay in that vibration, that this is what happens. And I'm here. I know I'm here to help you get into that vibration, that energy as well. All right, my darlings, I'll see you next week for our last teaching clinic.